The church in 2021. The high school in 2023. But the basement of the old funeral home never closed. It just started answering calls again at 3 a.m. on disconnected phones. I work the night shift at the county nursing home, 12 hours, 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. 15 residents, most of them bedbound, most of them waiting for something that isn't coming. That's how I know about the calls. The first time I heard it was a Tuesday. I was doing my 2 a.m. rounds. Mrs. Hendricks in room 112, 79 years old, stroke 4 years ago, hasn't spoken a word since. Her call light was on. I went in. She was sitting up. Mrs. Hendricks hasn't sat up without help in 4 years. But there she was, back straight, hands folded in her lap, staring at the phone on her bedside table. The phone wasn't plugged in. The cord had been cut in 2017 when the building switched to a wireless nurse call system. But it was ringing. I could hear it, a low mechanical buzz like a dying insect. Mrs. Hendricks looked at me. Her mouth opened, and she said something I had never heard her say in 2 years of working with her. "He's coming for the bones." Then she lay back down, closed her eyes, and didn't wake up for the rest of my shift. I checked the phone. No dial tone, no battery, nothing. I told myself it was a hallucination, sleep deprivation, stress. I told myself that for 3 weeks. Kellogg used to be a farming town. Corn and soybeans, families with the same last names for 5 generations. Then the farm crisis hit in the 80s. Then the opioid crisis hit in the 2000s. The hospital closed, the pharmacy closed, the high school closed. Kids now bust 40 minutes to Grinnell. What's left is the old, the sick, and the stuck. I'm stuck. I got pregnant at 19. The baby died at birth. The father left. My mom has emphysema. I take care of her and the nursing home residents, and that's my life. I don't complain. Complaining doesn't fill the tank. But I started noticing things after that night with Mrs. Hendricks. The calls spread. Room 104, Mr. Castellano, 82 years old, dementia, doesn't recognize his own daughter. I found him at 3 a.m. with the disconnected phone pressed to his ear. He was laughing. Not his laugh. A wet, gulping sound, like someone trying to swallow water and air at the same time. Room 108, Mrs. Okonkwo, 67, diabetes, amputated left foot. She was crying. Not sad crying, scared crying. The phone was on the floor. The receiver was moving, slightly, twitching like something alive. I picked it up. No dial tone, no static, just breathing, slow and wet and deliberate, like the person on the other end had all the time in the world and was enjoying waiting. Then a voice. Not a voice I recognized. Not a voice a human throat could make. Too low, too wide, like it was coming out of a space much larger than a telephone receiver. Cassie. I dropped the phone. The breathing stopped. The receiver lay still on the floor. Mrs. Okonkwo looked at me. Her lips were blue. "You heard it too," she whispered. I asked around, quietly. "You don't talk about this stuff in Kellogg. People already think you're crazy or on something or both." But the night nurse before me, a woman named Darlene who quit last month, she left a notebook in the break room, hidden behind the coffee filters. I found it on a night I couldn't sleep. The first page said, "They call from the basement." Darlene had been tracking the calls for 2 years. Every incident, every room, every resident who heard the voice, and then what? The notebook stopped mid-sentence on page 47. The last entry was dated the night before Darlene quit. It said, "I went to the funeral home. I shouldn't have gone. It knew me. It knew my daughter's name. It showed me." The rest of the page was torn out. I looked up the funeral home, Fisher and Sons, closed in 2019 after the owner, Harold Fisher, died in the basement. Heart attack, the report said. They found him 3 days later. The temperature in the basement was 68 degrees year-round. Too cold for decomp to happen fast. They said he looked like he was just sleeping. Except his hands were folded on his chest, and his fingers were arranged in a pattern that no one could explain. Thumb and 2 fingers pressed to the inside of his left wrist. The next night, I drove to the funeral home. It's on the edge of town, at the end of Mulberry Street, where the pavement turns to gravel and the gravel turns to mud. The sign is still there, Fisher and Sons, established 1953. The Sons are dead. The building is not. I parked across the street, engine off, lights off. 2:47 a.m. The windows were dark, but the basement windows, the little rectangles at ground level just above the foundation, were glowing. Not electric light, something softer, greener, the color of pond water in a drought. I sat in my car for 20 minutes. Then the front door opened. No one was there. The door just swung inward, slowly, the way a door swings when someone has already walked through and is waiting for you to follow. I should have driven home. I should have called the sheriff. I should have done literally anything except walk into an abandoned funeral home at 3 in the morning. But I heard it again. The voice from inside. "Cassie, we have your mother." My mother was at home, asleep. I had checked on her before I left, but I walked through that door anyway. The lobby smelled like formaldehyde and flowers and something else, something sweet and rotten, like a peach left in a hot car. The floor was tile. The walls were wood paneling. The front desk still had appointment books open to March 2019, the last month Harold Fisher was alive. I walked past the viewing rooms, empty, chairs stacked, a flag folded on a table. The door to the basement was at the end of the hallway. It was metal. It had a sign, "Staff only, embalming room." The sign was new. I put my hand on the door. The metal was warm, the same warmth as the wall in the Delta. No, that wasn't me. That was the other story. This is my story. This door was cold, but behind it I could hear breathing. Not one person breathing, many. A room full of people breathing in perfect unison. Inhale for 4 counts, hold for 7, exhale for 8. The same breathing exercise they taught us at the nursing home for anxiety. I opened the door. The stairs went down, concrete, no railing. 23 steps, I counted. At the bottom, a hallway. At the end of the hallway, a room. The embalming room was bigger than the entire funeral home above it. I don't mean metaphorically. I mean the dimensions didn't work. The building above was 40 feet wide. This room was at least 100. The ceiling was high, 30 feet maybe, and covered in something that looked like wet newspaper. The walls were tile. The floor was tile. In the center of the room, a steel table. And on the table, Mrs. Hendricks. She was dead. She had died 3 weeks ago, in the nursing home, the night she first spoke. Her funeral was last Tuesday. I attended. I watched them lower her casket into the ground. But here she was, lying on the steel table, eyes open, hands folded on her chest, thumb and 2 fingers pressed to her left wrist. Her lips moved. "He's coming for the bones, Cassie. All of them. Every bone that was buried without a name. Every bone that was forgotten. Every bone that was taken." I looked around the room. The walls weren't tile. They were shelves, floor to ceiling. And on the shelves, bones. Not complete skeletons, pieces, femurs, ribs, skulls with the jaws missing, fingers, toes, a child's pelvis, an old man's hip joint with a bullet hole in it. Thousands of them, tens of thousands, all labeled with little tags tied with white string. The tags had names, dates. Unknown, 1952. Stillborn, 1987. Jane Doe, flood of 93. This wasn't a funeral home basement. This was a collection, a storage facility, a museum of the unburied. Mrs. Hendricks sat up on the table, her head turned toward me. Her neck made a sound like wet wood snapping. "The voice on the phone," she said. "It isn't one thing, it's all of them. Everyone who was buried without a name. Everyone who was forgotten. Everyone who was taken before their time. They speak together. They want the same thing." "What do they want?" I whispered. She smiled. Her teeth were too white, too straight. Not her teeth. They want someone to remember. Someone to say their names. Someone to stay. The lights went out. I ran. I don't remember the stairs. I don't remember the lobby. I remember the front door slamming behind me and my car engine starting and the clock on my dashboard reading 3 a.m. exactly. I drove home, checked on my mother. She was asleep. Her chest was rising and falling. She had a pulse. I pressed her wrist, thumb, 2 fingers. She had a pulse. I did not sleep. The next morning, I went back to the nursing home. The day shift was already there. I asked about room 108, Mrs. Okonkwo. The day nurse looked at me strangely. "Mrs. Okonkwo passed away last night," she said, around 3 a.m, quietly, in her sleep. I went to the break room. The coffee filters were still there. Behind them, Darlene's notebook was gone. In its place was a single sheet of paper. On it, written in handwriting that was mine but wasn't. The letters too careful, too deliberate, like someone learning to write for the first time, was a list. 23 names. The first name was Hendrix, Margaret. The second was Okonkwo, Amara. The third was Castellano, Vincent. The rest were names I didn't recognize, but I knew they were the bones, the ones on the shelves, the ones waiting. At the bottom of the list, a note. Say our names, Cassie, 1 per night. We'll wait. We're very good at waiting. That was 6 weeks ago. I have said 13 names so far. I say them at 3 in the morning, sitting in my kitchen, speaking aloud to no one. I don't know what happens when I finish the list. I don't know if the voices will stop, or if they'll give me a new list, or if they'll come for my bones next. But last night, something changed. I was saying the 14th name, Piotrowski Janusz, 1944, when I heard a sound behind me. I turned. My mother was standing in the kitchen doorway. She was not supposed to be standing. She has emphysema. She can't walk to the bathroom without oxygen. But there she was, barefoot, nightgown, eyes open, thumb and 2 fingers pressed to her left wrist. She smiled, the same 2 white, 2 straight smile Mrs. Hendricks had. You're doing so well, Cassie, she said. We're proud of you. Her voice was not her voice. It was the voice, the one from the phone, low and wide and patient. When you finish the list, we'll let you go. We promise. She tilted her head, the same wet wood sound. Or you can stay. We have a place for you, right next to us, on the shelf. You'd never be alone again. I didn't answer. I couldn't. She turned and walked back to her bedroom. I followed. She got into bed, pulled the covers up to her chin, closed her eyes. Her chest was still rising and falling. She still had a pulse. But I don't know if she's my mother anymore. I don't know if any of us are. I have 9 names left. I say them at 3 in the morning. I say them alone. I say them in the dark. Tonight, I found a new name on the list. At the bottom. Added in the same careful, learning to write handwriting. Cassidy Marie Walsh, born 1996. Died. There's no death date yet. The space is blank. But the ink is fresh. And at 3:10 a.m., when I finish saying the names, I can feel something forcing me to smile. My head began tilting on its own. I get up and check the mirror. I look exactly like Mrs. Hendricks and my mother. That same smile. I hear noises outside my window. A crowd, breathing heavily. They stop all at once. I see my mother in that crowd. You don't have to call out our names anymore, Cassie. You can stop. We want you to stay with us. If you made it to the end, leave a like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments, what's the moment this one got you? We'll see you on the next one.
The pool at Harrison High was built in 1987. 3 kids drowned in it before they even filled it the first time. They filled it anyway. And every summer since, someone has gone in and not come out the same. If they come out at all. We have a main street with a stoplight that hasn't worked since I was born, a water tower that says, Harrison, Heart of the Prairie, and a swimming pool that should have been condemned 20 years ago. But it's the only pool within 60 miles, so we keep it open, and we keep the stories quiet. I've been a lifeguard for 3 summers. I've pulled 7 kids out of the water. I've broken up 100 cannonball contests. I've scraped more hair out of the main drain than I want to think about. But I've never, not once, seen the water do what it did last Tuesday. I want to tell this the way it actually happened, which means I have to tell you about the 3 rules first. Every lifeguard at Harrison Pool learns 3 rules on their first day. Rule 1. Never be alone in the building after midnight. Rule 2. If you see bubbles coming up from the main drain when the pump is off, do not get in the water. Rule 3. If you hear someone calling your name from the deep end and you are the only person in the pool, no, you didn't. I learned the rules on my first day. I asked why. The head lifeguard, a guy named Derek who had been there since the 90s, looked at me for a long time. Then he said, "Because the pool remembers every person who ever drowned in it, and sometimes it gets lonely." I thought he was joking. The pool was built in 1987. The story goes that during construction, a concrete form collapsed. 3 workers fell into the empty basin. The rebar went through 2 of them. The 3rd broke his neck on the bottom. They were dead before anyone could climb down the ladder. The town voted to finish the pool anyway. They filled it that spring. The first family to use it, the mother dipped her foot in and said the water was warm in a way that didn't make sense. It was April. The heater wasn't on. The first drowning happened 2 weeks later. A kid named Tyler Vance, 12 years old. He was doing laps. He was a good swimmer. He just went under and never came back up. They found him at the bottom of the deep end, 13 feet down, his fingers curled around the main drain cover like he had been trying to pull it off. His fingernails were gone, all 10. The medical examiner said he must have clawed at the concrete, but the concrete around the drain didn't have scratches. The drain cover did, on the inside, where his fingers couldn't have reached. I worked the 4 p.m. to close shift last Tuesday. It was a slow day, 94 degrees, which is hot for Nebraska, but most families had already left for the lake. By 7 p.m., I was the only guard on duty. My coworker, a junior named Maya, had called in sick. The pool had maybe 15 people in it. Kids in the shallow end, a few adults floating in the lane lines. Normal. Then I saw the girl. She was at the deep end, maybe 13 years old, long dark hair, a blue one-piece swimsuit. She was standing on the edge, looking down at the water. Not jumping, not diving, just standing there, perfectly still, staring at the surface. I watched her for a minute, then 2. She didn't move. I walked over. "Hey," I said, "you okay?" She turned her head toward me. Her eyes were red. Not bloodshot, red. Like the whites had been replaced with something pink and wet. She smiled. Her teeth were too small, like baby teeth, like she had never lost them. "The bottom is closer than it looks," she said. Her voice was wrong. Too low for a 13-year-old. Too wet. Like she was talking through a mouthful of pool water. Then she stepped off the edge. She didn't jump. She didn't dive. She just stepped, like there was floor under her foot, and dropped straight down into the deep end. No splash, no ripple. The water swallowed her like it had been waiting. I ran to the edge, looked down. The deep end was 13 feet. I asked the other swimmers, "Did anyone see a girl in a blue suit jump in here?" A woman floating nearby looked at me. "There's no kids in the deep end," she said. "Hasn't been all afternoon." I closed the pool an hour early. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing her eyes, that wet pink, the way she smiled with those tiny teeth. At 11:30 p.m., I got in my car and drove back to the pool. I don't know why. I tell myself I forgot my keys. I tell myself I wanted to check the chemical levels. But the truth is, I wanted to see if she was still there. The parking lot was empty. The building was dark. I used my key to unlock the gate. The pool was full. The water was still. The security lights made it look green, like lake water, like something alive. I walked to the deep end. The main drain was glowing. Not brightly, just a soft, pale light coming up from the grate, like a phone screen at the bottom of a bathtub. I knelt down and put my face close to the water. The light pulsed, slow, like a heartbeat. Then I heard it. "Leo, come closer. We want to show you something." I pulled back, stood up, walked backward to the gate, did not run, did not look away from the water. When I got to my car, my hands were shaking. I looked down at my fingers. My fingernails were gone. All 10. Not broken, not torn. Gone, like they had never been there. Just smooth, pink nail beds, raw and clean. I don't remember losing them. I don't remember pain. But when I pressed my fingertip to my thumb, something moved under the skin. Something small and hard. Something that felt like a tooth. I didn't go to the hospital. You don't go to the hospital in a town like Harrison. Word gets around. People talk. I went to Derek instead, the old head lifeguard. He lives in a trailer park on the edge of town, 3 dogs, a truck on blocks. I knocked on his door at 1 a.m. He opened it, looked at my hands, didn't ask. "You saw her," he said. "The girl in the blue suit." "Yeah, that's Linda. She drowned in 1991. She was 12. Same week Tyler Vance died, 7 years earlier. Same drain." I stared at him. "Linda, the same." "She's not the only one," Derek said. "The pool collects them. Every few years, someone goes under and doesn't come up. But they don't die. Not really. They just get added to whatever is down there." He showed me his hands. His fingernails were gone too. But under the skin of his palms, I could see something moving, shifting, like bones that hadn't decided where to settle. "I went in after a kid in 1998, Derek said. "Pulled him out, but something pulled back. It got my nails first, then my fingerprints, then the first knuckles. Every year, it takes a little more." He opened his mouth. His teeth were small, too small, baby teeth. "It wants to be whole," he said. "It wants to be a person. But there's too many of them down there. Linda, Tyler, the construction workers, the others. They can't agree on what a person looks like. So they take pieces, nails, teeth, fingers, and they try again." "How do you stop it?" I asked. Derek laughed. It was a wet sound, like water in the lungs. "You don't. You just lose slower than the rest. I went back to work the next day. What else was I supposed to do? I needed the money. My mom works 2 jobs. My dad left when I was 3. I'm not going to college. This is my life. I wore gloves. No one asked why. The pool was busy. Families, kids, the usual. I sat in my chair and watched the water and tried not to look at the deep end. At 3 p.m., a little boy, maybe 5 years old, walked toward the diving board. No parents, no swimsuit, just a t-shirt and underwear. I blew my whistle. "Hey, buddy, you need a swimsuit to get in." He turned around. His eyes were red, pink, wet. "I'm not getting in," he said. "I'm already in." He pointed at the pool. I looked. Under the water, near the main drain, a shape was forming. Not a body, a collection of pieces. A hand here, a foot there, a jaw floating separately, all of them moving toward each other, assembling. The water was clear. I could see everything. The hand had my fingernails. I recognized the shape of them. The foot had Derek's missing knuckles. The jaw had Linda's baby teeth. And the face was still forming. It had no eyes yet, no skin, just muscle and bone, knitting itself together under the water, turning slowly to look up at me. The little boy smiled. His teeth were too small. "We're almost done, Leo," he said. "We just need a few more pieces." I grabbed him by the arm. His skin was cold, wet. I pulled him away from the edge. He screamed, not a child's scream. 100 screams at once. Men, women, children, all of them underwater, all of them saying the same thing. "Let us finish." I dragged him to the front desk. His parents were there, normal parents. They looked at me like I was insane. "He was trying to get in the pool," I said. The mom frowned. "He's been sitting with us the whole time." I looked down. The boy was dry. His eyes were brown, normal. His teeth were normal. He was crying because a stranger had grabbed him. I let go, apologized, walked back to my chair. The shape in the water was gone, but the main drain was glowing again, soft, slow, like a heartbeat. And under my gloves, my fingernails were back, but they were facing the wrong way. I quit that afternoon. I don't work at the pool anymore. I don't go outside after dark. I don't look at standing water if I can help it. But the changes haven't stopped. Last week, I woke up with my right pinky finger bent at an angle that shouldn't be possible. The bone had been broken and reset during the night. I didn't feel it happen, but I could hear it, a soft grinding sound, like concrete settling. The day after that, my left kneecap was on the wrong side of my leg. I had to crawl to the bathroom. By noon, it had moved back, but it took a piece of my shin with it. I went to a doctor in Omaha. He took x-rays. He said my skeleton looked like someone had taken it apart and put it back together without the instructions. He asked if I had been in an accident. I said no. He asked if I had been exposed to any chemicals. I said no. He asked if I had ever been to the Harrison pool. I didn't answer. Last night, I drove past the pool. It was closed for the season. The water had been drained. That's what they do every October. Drain the pool, cover it, winterize the pumps. But when I drove past, the cover was off, and the pool was full. Not with water, with them. Dozens of them, standing in the empty basin, naked, pale, their bodies made of mismatched pieces. Adult heads on children's legs, hands with too many fingers, feet pointing backward. All of them facing the deep end, all of them staring at the drain. And standing at the edge, looking down at them, was Derek. He turned when he saw my headlights. His face was wrong. The skin was too tight. The eyes were too far apart. He smiled. His mouth was full of baby teeth. "We're still missing a few pieces, Leo," he called out. "But we're patient. We've been here since 1987. We can wait." He stepped off the edge. He didn't fall. He didn't drop. He walked down into the empty pool like there were stairs. But there were no stairs. Just air. Just concrete. Just the place where water used to be. I drove away. I didn't look back. I'm writing this in a motel room outside Lincoln. I haven't slept in 3 days. Every time I close my eyes, I feel something moving under my skin. Rearranging. Reassembling. I looked at my hands this morning. My fingernails are back. All 10. Normal. But my fingers are longer than they were yesterday. And there are 11 of them. I don't know which one is new. I don't know who it belonged to before. I'm going to keep driving. West. Toward the mountains. Away from water. But last night, I stopped at a rest area. There was a fountain in the courtyard. Small. Concrete. Maybe 2 feet deep. The water was still, and from the bottom, a light was glowing. Soft. Pale. Pulsing. A hand reached up from the water. Too many fingers, all of them facing the wrong way. It waved, and I heard it, from the fountain, from the pool 600 miles behind me, from every drain and every pipe and every puddle between here and Harrison.
"We'll find you, Leo. We just need one more piece."
I ran to my car. I'm still driving. But my left foot doesn't fit in my shoe anymore. It's too big. And when I took my sock off at the last gas station, I saw something that made me throw up in the trash can. My toes are facing backward now. All of them. And I think one of them just blinked. Check your shoes. When did your toes last face forward? If you made it to the end, leave a like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments, what's the moment this one got you? We'll see you on the next one.